Hey Teach 236. For the dystopian genre, our group, which is group 4, chose to read The Final Six by Alexandra Monier. This book, as you can see in the title or in the cover right here, is centered around space and kind of discovering more about that space in our universe. And this is, let me move myself. This is Alexandra Monier right here. I'm going to put this back down. So this book, as I said, is centered on the Earth, but it talks a lot about discovering space and especially Europa, which is Jupiter's moon. So the conflict of this book begins with Earth kind of destroying itself. And the point, or I guess we'll get to that later. So we're going to start talking about Europa a little bit. So Earth citizens have declared war against the environment because there have been major floods and earthquakes and just kind of a lot of disruption in the earth because of pollution and global warming and climate change and all these things. The earth is kind of just falling apart. So the whole Earth citizens, kind of the United Nations is behind it. They have decided to send 6 teenagers to Jupiter's moon to colonize it and to get it ready for everybody on Earth to eventually move to Europa and start a new life there because they don't think Earth is going to last much longer. So they choose 24 teenagers, and they choose teenagers because they're young and they're active, and they choose these teenagers specifically because they're really smart and that they can reproduce, and there's just all they can avoid radiation and that kind of thing. So they're just a little more flexible than adults would be. So that's why they choose teenagers, which is a really good point for young adolescents because they feel very involved and relatable because the characters in this book are teenagers. So that's a really good point to think about while you're considering what to put in your library. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. And just a little bit more about Europa. This is a picture of Europa. It's actually Jupiter's moon, like it's a real thing. And there evidently is no life on Europa, but there is ice and water, and they know this because they have sent some kind of intelligence to Europa to discover this. So when they chose the candidates, evidently the space station and the space program, NASA and the ESA has been really closely watching 24 teenagers, and everybody has a different talent and purpose for going to Europa or being selected to maybe go to Europa. But the book mainly focuses on 2 teenagers, Leo and Naomi. And Leo is from Italy. He's a swimmer, and his whole family, his mom, dad, and his sister have died in a big, huge flood that completely overtook Rome. And he survived. And when he is called to go train for Europa, he is stoked. He is so excited to represent his country, and he is just ready to go. And then Naomi, on the other hand, is from the United States. She's a genius. She, especially in space and with genetics, that kind of thing, it really interests her. She is completely family-centered. Her family is her life, and she cannot imagine leaving them, which is why she is just dreading Europa. But they have also chosen some other teenagers. There's 24, obviously, so they're all kind of thrown together and expected to work together and to show their skills. And yeah, so the whole book is kind of portraying them training and the whole procedure that goes through that and what they've had to go through and all these kinds of things. So it is really interesting to know how they were training and to see like the technology that has been developed from here until now. It never says a year that it is, but obviously it's very far in the future because the world is like collapsing on itself. So only 6 will remain. So that's kind of the tension the whole time of who's going to make it, who's going to get eliminated. And that's like one of the main conflicts in the book. So this, the Final Six is dystopian because there are a few aspects, and this is all from that document that Dr. Bonner shared with us. So this book kind of criticizes humans for not caring for the environment, and it kind of warns us, like, if we keep polluting the earth, if we keep just throwing whatever we want into it and not really taking care of it like we should be, then this could happen. That could completely turn on us, and we might have to figure out something else to do. So that's kind of a criticism, which is a characteristic of a dystopian genre. And the people in this book have limited freedom. They have food rations because there's not enough food for everybody. And then specifically when the 24 contestants come and train in Texas, they can't like have Wi-Fi or connections to the outside world. And obviously the natural world is distrusted. And this book is dystopian, but it's moving towards a utopia where everything's going to be perfect, hypothetically, on Jupiter once it's all established. Another characteristic of a dystopian literature that this book portrays is it is technologically controlled. And as you can see here, there's a picture of a robot. And these robots play a big part in this book because they are going to be accompanying the six teenagers, the final six, to the Mars mission, or I'm sorry, the Jupiter mission. And Naomi is the dystopian protagonist because she feels very constricted and like she can't get out and she wants to and she is like trapped in where she is. And she questions the government and she thinks that they're hiding something. And she is like one of the only ones who is really worried about the dangers of the mission because she knows so much. She knows so much for her age that she knows that the government knows something that they're not telling everybody. And so that book, another conflict in the book is her trying to figure out what that information is that they're not sharing. So in our discussion that we had, we decided, our group 4 decided that this book is good for middle schoolers because they can relate to the characters because they're the same age as them, and it's written in pretty simple language. We decided that for like, it wasn't the best book for every age or every taste because it was a little bit like not as exciting as we hoped, but that also just kind of goes along with young adolescent literature. Like we're not young adolescents, so I mean obviously we weren't so in tune a whole time, but we did conclude that middle schoolers would enjoy it because there is a twist of love in the whole thing too. So it's the action of space preparation and the twist of romance, which can drag some other people in that normally probably wouldn't read a book about space. Also, we are excited for the sequel and a movie that are both being made. Sony is producing the movie, and they actually bought the rights to produce the movie before the book was even published. So if that tells you anything about the promise that they saw in this book. As I said, the characters are relatable, which makes it a really good book for middle schoolers. And it is well representative of the countries. Like the different teenagers are from a lot of different countries, but it's also kind of stereotypical. Like there's 2 Americans, which we were kind of just like, of course, there's 2 Americans, which one is Arab, but that helped a little bit. But then, so Beckett, these are the names of some other teenagers. Beckett is from the United States as well. There's Asher from Israel, Suki from Indonesia, I think, and Dev from India. There's a girl from Canada, from China. So there's like, they definitely pulled from different parts of the world, but some of them are a little more stereotypical than others or not. Like the person from Israel was like praying and like that kind of thing. So it wasn't like too bad, and a middle schooler probably wouldn't notice, but just as more critical thinking of this book, it was well representative of many different cultures, but it also had a few stereotypes in the book as well. So that was a little rundown on the final 6. It was really good, and we would recommend it for you guys, especially for a middle school library. And up here in the corner, I've attached Ruben's movie trailer, or book trailer. You guys should all check it out because he did a really good job on it, and it does a good job of visually explaining the book as well. So, yeah, thanks for watching.